Okay, we're ready to go.
The March 27th, 2025 meeting of the City of Vancouver Planning Commission will now come to order. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Jay,
Present.
Commissioner Wheeler,
Present.
Commissioner Beck. I think we know that person is out. Correct. Commissioner Cavell,
Present.
Commissioner Liddell. I think we know that person is out. Vice Chair Pyle
It's also out. Yep.
and Chair Adegweme.
Present. Given that we have some absences, the chair will entertain a motion to excuse those absences.
I motion to excuse our 3 absences.
The motion has been proffered. Is there a second?
A second.
Motion has been proffered and seconded to excuse these absences. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes and the absences are considered excused. Okay, that takes us into the first item on the agenda, which is a workshop on the impact fee deferral code changes. Deputy Director Kennedy, did you have any remarks to introduce this item?
Yeah, I'll just set it up briefly. Thank you, Chair. I think, as you'll see in this presentation, and as I think generally the Planning Commission is aware, development activity has slowed down significantly in the city related to market factors, labor and supply costs, interest rates, we are trying to, we have very big housing goals and targets that we need to show we can meet through a comprehensive plan project. And so we're taking a series of steps to help support private and not private development, but also affordable nonprofit-led development to move forward. This is one of those steps. You have another one before you later tonight for a hearing. That's the parking change. And there is yet another sort of step we're taking that won't come to you all. It'll go straight to council, but it's related to the multifamily tax exemption project. So again, this is a package of stuff. I apologize that it's not coming as one thing. There are some timing considerations, but so that is kind of the context. And so I'll pass it over to Brian Monroe and Brian Snodgrass to run you through it.
Perfect, thank you. And sorry, will the presentation screen be updated to match theirs? Awesome, thank you so much.
Okay, good afternoon. The purpose of our workshop today is to provide a preview of the proposed changes to the zoning code, specifically the impact fee waiver section at VMC 2915.
Brian, sorry, can you check your mic? Is it working? Okay, great, thank you.
You just need to get in there. Oh, there it goes. There we go. All right. So we'll be requesting any feedback, data, or information that would be useful to the commission in order to have you forward an affirmative recommendation to City Council at your upcoming hearing date on July 8th. For our agenda today, I'll be sharing our current incentive programs, our multifamily unit production, our proposed incentives package that Rebecca mentioned, go over a couple of the general impact fee details, the new payment timeline, potential impacts of the proposal, and then some precedents on some other jurisdictions that are using this as well. And then we'll look at next steps. All right, as I noted in the memo, the city over the past few years has been introducing incentive programs for the development community to spur more housing production. We've opened up the multifamily tax exemption program from 2 eligible areas to 8 areas. And we've also added ownership or wealth building options into that program as well. We've created a new program for the redevelopment of surface parking lots into affordable housing. We've invested affordable housing levy funding into housing production. We've also invested CDBG and home funding into projects like Fourth Plain Forward, Fourth Plain Commons. There we go. And lastly, over the past couple of years, we've had some zoning code amendments to loosen up requirements for ADUs, affordable housing, and affordable housing commercial districts. Fortunately, with the finance and construction and materials and stability right now, these measures have not been enough to get these projects underway. So right now, the housing and development review departments are putting together a few more levers to potentially make these projects more amenable to investors and financiers. This is a chart showing the multifamily units completed within Vancouver year over year, with the 2025 data ending in April. These are issued or completed. These are completed. And so we have pulled the issued permits as well, and the trend is basically following the same curve as the completed. The city's goal to supply and demand issues, we're looking to produce 2,000 new units annually. Again, despite the tools we have in place, the developers are still struggling to attract investors and achieve financing that will meet return on investment minimums.
Sorry, I just want to make sure we can underscore this. So this is looking at, this is units, permits issued for units, right? Units for which permits were issued for.
This data is completions, so our occupancies. So these are completed units in each year.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
And when we come back in July, we'll also have the companion permits issued piece.
Okay. Yeah, because I think it's important to see, I mean, these numbers tell a story, but it's important to see the pipeline as well, which I thought that's what this was, but these are completed, delivered units.
Right. These are delivered units year over year, and the permits issued follows the same downward trend.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
So I think this year through April, they've issued about 400 permits, so about halfway through the year. And we only have 400 units in the pipeline so far for this year. All right, so in an effort to too old school to use the fingers without my mouse. In an effort to get housing production up, we are proposing several new incentives. Your public hearing tonight, you'll be hearing about changes to the minimum parking requirements. We'll be proposing to defer payment of fee in lieu for the multifamily tax exemption. It'll instead be at the start of the exemption, and it'll be pushed back towards the occupancy of the buildings, or excuse me, it'll be pushed back into the the term of the exemption. We're also looking at deferring system development charges for multifamily housing from the time of connection forward to the time of building permit occupancy as well. Development review department will be looking at reducing the required review times on their plan reviews for first and second and third reviews, going down from 28 days to 14 days on the second reviews, and then any subsequent reviews would go down to 7 days to try and help get those through more quickly. And then finally, today's proposal for an amendment to the impact fee ordinance. We're allowing deferred payment of the transportation and park impact fees until the final occupancy permit or temporary occupancy permit inspection. This deferral will not apply to school fees, school impact fees. And I know in the code section that we distributed, it had a section on deferral of school impact fees. So in that section, I think it's 2915, 076, section C can just be eliminated because we won't be applying this to the school impact fees at all. And then for the impact fees in general, of course, we have a impact fee ordinance. The impact fees are one-time charges assessed by government against new development projects to help pay for new or expanded public capital facilities that will directly address the increased demand for services created by that development. The purpose is to maintain and improve public infrastructure such as roads, parks, and schools up to the level of service standards set by the City of Vancouver. And this is to keep up with the increased demand created by the development. The developers basically pay a proportionate share based on the service demands of the development they're creating. And the fees are then paid into an interest-bearing account to await dispersal towards infrastructure projects on the capital facility plan for parks and traffic. Impact fees must be expended or covered within 10 years of receipt, or they may be subject to refund. Let's see here. Currently, the payment time for these are at the time the building permits are picked up. And we're looking at moving them to the time just before their final inspection. That's what this slide shows, kind of a graphic timeline of the difference, and the difference basically 18 to 36 months is what the deferral would be for. We figured that multifamily projects, usually the smaller ones, are about an 18-month construction period, and some of the larger mid-rise towers are more around 36 months. So that's how we came up with those dates. So the fact is that where we sit today, almost halfway through the year, we only have 23 unit completions so far. Although I did learn today that potentially another 200 units were completed in May. So I'll be providing you with updated data with that information at your subsequent hearing. This slide also shows the potential financial impact of 1,000 new multifamily units. And my discussion with the Public Works Asset Manager, impact fee accounts are receiving close to 4%. So parks use a straight unit per unit fee for all park districts A, B, and C, whereas the traffic fees are based on an average daily trip, but they vary in district. Each district has a different fee. So for this calculation, I used an average of those three fees, which brought it to an average of $341. So the potential loss for meeting half of what the city's production goal is 662,000, and that's over a 36-month deferral, not per year as the slide shows. So basically $662 per unit is what we're looking at. If it's an 18-month project, we're looking at half that at about $331,000 over 36 months. One perspective that I'd like to highlight is right now we're not having any multifamily projects coming in, so the city is really not receiving any impact fees. So without any projects going forward, we don't have any fees to collect. We're weighing the potential impacts. But hopefully if these measures are successful, we can be in a better position to start collecting more fees in the future. On the developer side, the calculation that I did, I used the Gateway Affordable Housing Project that's going to be over here in our parking lot. They have 95 affordable units, and the typical impact fees for this project for traffic and park would be $490,000. If the payment were deferred for 36 months, the value of the deferral to the developer would be about $88,000, which equates to around $900 per unit. And then looking at the proposed code language we provided for the multifamily deferral payment, to be eligible for the deferral, developers will be required to have a lien placed on the property recorded with the Clark County Auditor's Office, and the fee payment may be deferred for a maximum of 36 months. And once the fees are paid, then the lien can be released and the temporary or full building occupancy permit inspection can commence. In terms of precedents, looked around a little bit and found 3 local cities that are using it. Spokane, Olympia, and Washougal all allow this same deferral for their multifamily units. So the proposal is not any type of pioneering change. It's being used elsewhere around the state. And so for our next steps, we hope to come back to you for a public hearing on July 8th, and provided you give the green light there, we'll move to City Council in August and look to officially adopt the code change. So based on the information we have here today, we're asking for any feedback on the proposal or any additional information you think you may need for your recommendation. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Cavill.
Is there any estimate, I think you sort of hinted at it, at kind of what we would gain in exchange for deferring these payments and like increases of housing units completed?
We don't have an estimate on the number of units that this would generate. Just how the market is right now, the materials cost fluctuation. We don't know where that would lead to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the numbers are so low right now. It's kind of like any juice probably would be worth it. One thing that might be interesting, I mean, you mentioned the other cities that have tried something similar. So maybe they did an analysis and saw that they, gained relative to what they were expecting. But that would be interesting to learn more about next time we see you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Wheeler.
I think just a few general comments. First of all, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for putting this together. Always happy to see any steps we're taking in the direction of trying to increase housing production. Overall, I think I'm optimistic about this idea. Anything that helps encourage development helps get our city into a better state financially, especially given that a lot of development in this context is likely going to be infill or multifamily. So even though we're looking at potentially losing some of that revenue from interest, I mean, as you said, right now, we don't have any multifamily development, so we're not getting any fee revenue at all. But even if we did lose out on some, in the long run, being able to incentivize more building in a more efficient manner helps cut costs and make our spending more efficient, and also can increase overall revenue for the city if we can increase our tax base. So I think when it comes to the financial health of the city, as Commissioner Cavill said, the juice is probably worth the squeeze here. I don't think I have any real questions about further information. I think we got some good data presented to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Jay.
I would definitely like to, well, thank you both, Brians. I really appreciate your presenting it to us this evening. And I'm definitely aligned with Commissioner Cobbles' suggestion to look at how the other jurisdictions performed with their, after they adopted similar policies. And I'm definitely aligned with anything that we can do to, a lot of our building requirements, such as impact fees, can have an impact on developers' decision to develop. So I'm definitely in favor of looking into these things. But would the increased timeline prevent developers from passing on the cost to the final buyers, or would that have any impact on that? Be my first question.
Okay, so you're asking, could you restate that again?
Would delaying the timeline for which they would pay their impact fees, would that prevent them from passing off the cost to the ultimate final buyers, though?
Well, they're receiving the benefit. So I think that, as it's been explained to me, giving them time to increase their operating budget will allow them the opportunity to not pay that upfront. And hopefully that would be beneficial enough to the investors and lenders and the developers to move projects forward.
Yeah, I think to further hone in on that, likely they're going to be charging the final buyer that regardless of whether it's charged now or later. So being able to defer that payment later essentially saves the buyer that interest over that time, in addition to making it a less risky investment for the developer. So the benefit is less of it's less a financial benefit and more of a risk benefit for the developer. But I think the end result of cost would likely be close to the same or marginally less for a deferred project.
That's great. Yeah, very good to hear, because I know ultimately these costs are passed on to the final home buyer. So we can make sure that, if it reduces it for them, that's even better. So perfect. Glad to hear. And have there been any conversations about even lowering the impact fees, or is that something that's also come up? I'm sure it has, but wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on it.
We're going to do an analysis of impact fees and SDCs. So impact fees are transportation, parks, and schools, and then system development charges are sewer and water. So kind of looking at that holistically through the comprehensive plan and how it sort of impacts the development, like what are all the costs all in sort of for different types of development projects. And then Brian can speak to, we are also required by the state to calibrate our fees based on the size of the unit. So go ahead if you want to just talk about that.
Yeah, and I can't remember if we talked about this or not, but yeah, one of the requirements that we have to do as part of our code update is to have impact fees, residential impact fees at least, calibrated by the size, either bedrooms or number of trips they produce or size, square footage of the units accordingly. So right now, our code distinguishes between single and multifamily, but it doesn't, a very large single family house would pay the same impact fees as a small single family house. Same thing for multifamily units. So we have to come up with a system that calibrates that.
That will be, just to kind of directly answer your question, that the calibration requirement will be a decrease in cost for for units that are smaller, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. That's all my questions. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, just a couple of things, try and address what this might look like for a member of the public. So just going back to, I think it's slide 3, there are a couple acronyms there. I think CDBG is one and HOME is another. Can we go over what those mean for anyone who might be viewing this presentation, looking back to the recording?
Sure. CDBG is the Community Development Block Grant Program, and it's kind of tied with another program, the HOME, which is, they're both HUD programs. And so we issue boards annually for those. They apply to them. And in this case, I think with Fourth Plain Commons, we can actually get a loan from HUD based on the amount of entitlement that we get. And so one of the things we did for that project was essentially a loan against our own entitlement to get them funds.
Just typically we're combining, so basically this formula funds that come from the federal government to jurisdictions of a specific size, formulas based on population, and typically at the city we use it to fund mostly affordable housing projects, but also some other key things around small business technical assistance, like credit repair,
Public services.
Public services, which includes some homelessness services. So it's typically used for like kind of community development or usually mostly housing related purposes. And then just to elaborate a little bit, Brian mentioned the ability to borrow against your entitlement. So yeah, that was part of the funding stack for Fourth Plain Commons. It's called a Section 108 loan. So that's another, I guess, HUD, Housing, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD product that's related to sort of our CDBG and home formula funds.
Thank you. That was my follow-up was also, that's another, I love it. Moving to the next page, page 4, just to address, I think, some of the public comments that we received. Where can the public really dig into this data? Is it somewhere that they can view on the city's website, or just to quote unquote do their own digging and research, as it were? Where could they access these materials?
Yeah,
to
this is
view them
pulled
further?
from the city's, we have a permits dashboard. And so I had it sent to me in the form of a monthly report that's issued. So that is available. I have not gone into the city's website and tried to extract the data myself, but I think I will now.
Okay.
Yeah,
But it is publicly available.
there is a development dashboard that tracks the permit activity. That's on the city's website.
Perfect, thank you. So if I'm just John Q. Public, I could go on the city's website, see this data, look at it for myself, and really dig down into it as much as I wanted to.
It may not be in this graphical format, but yes, it is available online.
Excellent, thank you so much. And then you mentioned earlier, to your point, what's in the pipeline. I just want to underscore, we'd love to see that. That's really important to really see the context around both what's been completed, what we have coming, and compare that to our goal, right? So just wanted to underscore that. And then on slide 8, a couple of questions here. So it sounds like enforcement of this would be via lien, I think I heard, right?
Yeah, so they would be required to record a lien against the property until that's paid off. It would stay on there, and that would hold up their occupancy permit inspection, which at that point they're clamoring to get so they can get their funds released and get that finished up.
Great. Does this move the needle on feasibility by itself? And I think this is Commissioner Cavill's point of seeing what other jurisdictions have done and understanding what that change might have been. And I know that we're working on sort of a suite. It sounds like the city's working on a suite of initiatives to try and incentivize development in the space. But it would be great to know if we expect this to be one of the things that has, you know, high impact, medium impact, or low impact as part of the stack of things that we're trying to do to incentivize development, right?
By itself, it's going to be a low impact. So all the proposed items that we're taking forward, as my understanding, if we can get all those in place, pull all the levers, it might be able to get the developers like a 1 to 2% increase in their return on investment. So we're hoping that everything together can help move that needle.
Right, and this is about financial feasibility of that development, just to get development
Just to
actually
get through
in the
financing.
process, right?
And really quick, Chair, I think an important thing that we should clarify when we're talking about this, and Jim Chun, please jump in here, but I think there's a kind of tendency in just, you know, the community to sort of see developers as like, you know, these profit extracting, you know, high rent demanding sort of people who maybe aren't necessarily thinking about the best interests of the community. And I think that's not true. We look at the private development community as partners who work with us, who build the vast majority of housing that exists in our community. And also, they have institutional financing partners who require, as a matter of risk, right, a certain return on investment to make it something they're willing to invest their funds in. And so it's often, you know, not the developer itself, but it is the investor that's driving the ROI number. And that's on the margins, this package is where we're trying to move that so that investment will continue to happen. So really kind of wanting to kind of evolve that narrative, right? Private developers are our partners in delivering sufficient housing to the community, and often are not dictating all the terms of the development deal. Mostly are going to have to secure private equity financing or institutional financing, and that's what's driving a lot of things. So just some perspective there.
Thank you. I think that's helpful. And Second to last question here, how does this compare to the budget? When we look at these numbers, is this a significant hit to the city when we think about the budget holistically? I know that's probably something that people might be concerned about is, are we losing out on revenue? We heard, I think earlier during Commissioner Wheeler's questions and some of the things that you've said in your presentation already, that you can't really subtract from zero or a very low amount, right? But can you talk a little bit more about how this impact compares to the city's budget as a whole, just generally speaking?
Yeah, generally speaking, it's not tied to the city's budget. It's not general fund dollars. These are for improvements on our capital facilities, programs for parks and traffic. So in terms of separating those two silos, the city budget as a whole is not affected, but the capital program dollars would be delayed and potential interest lost in completing those projects. So it'd be a little bit of delay in the project and the funding.
But just to put it in sort of comparison numbers, you know, so $660,000 a year. You know, the city's budget is like over $1 billion per biennium. $600,000 isn't going to make or break our budget challenges, right? It's a very small fraction. And again, as Brian said, impact fees don't fund general funded stuff like police and fire. It funds capital improvements tied specifically to the impact of that development. So if the development doesn't happen, then the impacts don't happen. There's no money, right? So it's not like we're losing it by sort of delaying it because we might not get it at all, right? Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense, and that's exactly kind of the answer that I was looking for. Thank you. I think Commissioner Wheeler has a question.
I just want to jump in with a comment about the percentage of the budget. I know, as we discussed, if the impacts don't happen, then we don't have to worry so much about it. But I've done some of this math for our street funding because I am a giant nerd. And when it comes to our street funding, at least as of 2023, which was the day that I was available when I did this math, it was about 3% of our overall street improvement, both with operating costs and capital improvement, 3.2% that came from traffic impact fees. And that's overall, not just the interest. So even looking at the budget, our street budget as a whole, it's a pretty small percentage, and the interest is even smaller percentage of that.
Thank you. I think that's helpful to have on the record. I appreciate that. And lastly, I was hoping, again, very much in the general sense, that you could speak to how development might drive infrastructure improvements. And I think we've gotten just a little preview of that there. But to Deputy Director Kennedy's comment about partnering with the development community as the city does, how does that help to foster and grow infrastructure improvements in general in the city?
If we can get projects to go forward, we're looking at curb, gutter, sidewalks, street trees, street lights for around the project itself. And then the impact fees that are generated for that can go to any projects. They're supposed to stay in the district that the fees are collected in. So that's kind of how that would work. Parks is that would be tied directly to impact fees as well. But anything that new projects being built, and we're looking at all water, sewer, infrastructure to look at what's in the street now versus what's needed for future capacity, and the developers will have to build their project to meet city standards for that.
So that's a very, very good point. Just to kind of put the finer tip on what Brian said, most of the sort of infrastructure replacement that you see in the city outside of big capital projects that are limited in where they happen is happening through private development. So if you don't have sidewalks or your sidewalks are substandard, when something develops, they're going to make those improvements to our current standards through frontage improvements. We'll ask for, depending on the sort of nexus of the development, to a project listed on our impact fee list, we can get, like Brian said, intersection improvements different lighting, street trees when the sidewalks are done. So like also important to know that development is our partner in renewing our aging infrastructure. Because there's no way that the city could do it all. Our capital budgets are much too constrained and are dedicated entirely to sort of large system-wide impact charges. So not to tie it too much to the comp plan, but you know, if you want sidewalks in neighborhoods that don't have them, we will never get to those ever, absent some windfall of money that doesn't seem to be coming. But middle housing might build it, right? Like new middle housing product in existing neighborhoods could build sidewalk, right? So that's just sort of going to the comp plan, but it's important to note that development is also our partner in sort of adding infrastructure we don't have it and building to better standards where we do.
Thank you. I think that's helpful to have on the record. It sounds like there are a variety of reasons for the city to do its best to try and support more development in this space. I think that's everything that we have. Seeing no additional questions from my fellow commissioners. Thank you so much.
Okay, we get a long dinner break. Dinner's ready. And we'll be back at 6:30 for community forum and public hearing.
May 27th, 2025 meeting of the City of Vancouver Planning Commission will resume after the 6 p.m. break, which takes us into our next agenda item, the community forum. Do we have anyone signed up to speak for a community forum today? Okay, I will read through our preamble here and then we can call them in the order. So a community forum is held at each meeting of the Planning Commission. During the community forum, the public is invited to provide input on matters related to the Planning Commission's authority and responsibility for land use and development matters. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to address the commission. The chair will help you keep track of time. Remarks shall be directed to the Planning Commission as a body, not to individual members or staff, and focus on subjects within the commission's advisory purview. Community members who wish to submit lengthy or detailed testimony are encouraged to email their comments to planningcommission@cityofvancouver.us. Please note that community forum is different from testimony provided as part of a public hearing. In the case of public hearings, individuals indicating they wish to testify on the public hearing item will be called upon during that portion of the agenda. We appreciate, welcome, and consider community input regarding land use policy. Please call the first person.
Good evening. This is Kimberly Goheen Elbin, live citizen of Clark County, Washington, USA. I'm finding it my civic duty to my oath to be speaking tonight only because I play pool and I'm missing out on practice, but I can do pretty good without practice sometimes. So, and this is certainly nothing personal to anyone there as of yet, for sure. So I haven't been involved with this planning commission much, and certainly not the complex.
And I'm here on behalf of the Village at Fisher's Landing Neighborhood Association.
Excuse me, am I talking?
We recently sent out a
Hello?
survey to our neighbors, and we got.
Hello?
Want me to wait?
Hello, am I still speaking? So we're going to actually, oh, God is so good to me. You actually, I'm not able to speak. I can't hear you. I'm not muted. Somebody interrupted me and I need to know if you can hear me or not. Thank you.
Kimberly, can you hear us now?
I can hear you now. Hello? Okay, now I can't hear you now.
Kimberly, we can't
So
hear
we're gonna
you.
have-
We're having some technical difficulties, so we're going to come back to you. I'm sorry, we're going to get it fixed and come back to you. So we'll be back in just a second.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Again, I'm Amy Smith, and I'm here representing the Village at Fisher's Landing Neighborhood Association. We had sent out a survey previously and have updated the results of that survey and sent that out to the group. And we now have 80 responses, and they are resoundingly the same, that our 90% of our respondents agree about keeping our neighborhood the same. You know, we really have a top concern about losing the neighborhood character. Just a little bit about our neighborhood is we have a 55 plus area at the end of one of our busier streets. And this community, as well as all the neighbors, do utilize the sidewalks. It's ADA compliant, and it's very good for walking. There's a lot of beauty in this neighborhood. So surrounding neighbors do use this neighborhood quite a bit for walking dogs and for exercise. We have diverse neighborhood developments. We have across the street larger multi-family buildings. We have apartment buildings and connected condos. So the whole area is very diverse as far as what's been provided for access for these neighbors to get to transit. And we have on 164th a lot of retail and a lot of food choices for neighbors. So we're just looking to continue access for this beautiful neighborhood. We have a lot of older growth trees and falcons, eagles, rabbits, raccoons, you name it. We've got a lot of wildlife, and it is very much appreciated by the neighbors. So we just hope that you're able to look at some of the responses that we've obtained from our neighbors. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We're still working on the remote technology, so let's go to the next in-person person.
Thank you.
I'll two people at a time. Tabor Kelly and Bruce Barnes.
Good evening, Commission. I saw that the development impact fees were on tonight's agenda. When developers need to find the capital to make a project work, they have to go out and get what's called a capital stack. And this capital is going to demand a return that has a risk premium and an illiquidity premium that is greater than more liquid and less risky investments. And so both the developers and the capital stack necessarily believe that they can pass on development impact fees to the future tenants or owners of a property. So the developers need the rents to be high enough to pass on these fees, but the developers don't control the rent prices any more than they control the cost of capital prices. So the only way to actually pass on these development impact fees is for the supply and demand of rental homes or apartments or homes to buy to shift up and to the left on the supply and demand curve by everyone collectively building less units, because that's how the supply and demand curve works. Obviously, this affects all rents in the city. So it's possible that all development impact fees are bad, but traffic impact fees are the worst. If I rent an apartment that paid a TIF, the TIF was passed on to me, or at least they thought they could pass the TIF on to me when they funded the project. And I'd be an idiot not to buy a car and drive it around when I already paid for the roads, because I pay the fee either way. And if I have a neighbor who's too poor or disabled to drive, then they just subsidized my driving. I would say this flies in the face of the city's climate and equity goals, as well as logic, reason, and like the belief in markets. It would be much better to charge the road users for using the road than forcing everyone who lives in an apartment building to pay for the road whether or not they use it. And I won't take up any of your more time, any more of your time later, but what I said also applies to minimum parking requirements. Thank you for your time. Good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Bruce Barnes. I'm a lifelong resident of Clark County and the city of Vancouver. I've got some real concerns about development in the community. I've also got some real concerns about what has been done with the roads. Reducing roads that were bonded to have 4 lanes and then reducing it down to 2 lanes, one in each direction, and putting public transit on there that really guides is really causing some issues in our community. And the bigger problem I have is the apartment complexes that are being built, especially by the Vancouver Housing Authority. I understand that people that are low income need houses, but we don't need to keep bringing people into this community that can't basically afford to live. It's just creating a low income community and massive crime. The crime's through the roof here. And it's putting a burden on the actual person that actually owns a home and pays property taxes, because those people are the ones that are paying all the bills. Okay. Apartment owners or apartment renters do not pay property tax, and either does the Vancouver Housing Authority. These are all projects that are put together by nonprofits that don't pay any tax, and all their fees are being waived by 8, 10, and 12-year deals with developers, right? And I'm all for housing, but I want housing that works, right? We need overpasses over SR 500 to move people. You know, we don't need to restrict lanes. I just went to city council last week where they talked about a lack of parking. Well, obviously they didn't plan for the waterfront, because I don't even think there's an eighth of the parking that is needed down there just for the residents, when you look at that as a whole. And then they raised all the parking fees, and now they want to have parking fees above Franklin for residents. Okay, $100 per month parking fee, that's not going to work. People are going to move out of here. We need businesses that create jobs. We need housing that is affordable. I get that, but I don't see the planning of this community going in a very positive direction. And I think with the new parking fees, it's going to detour people from wanting to come to the waterfront. Plus, there's no shopping down there. Every waterfront I've ever been to has shopping. There's no businesses down there you can shop in. It's only restaurants and drinking facilities. And the place closes down early. Downtown Portland is more attractive to people because they don't have the parking fees on the weekends for the most part. And there's a lot more activities and shopping down there. We don't have that here. But I'm really concerned about the roads, and I'm really concerned about the affordable housing and the taxes that are being imposed on property owners. So anyways, that's all I've got for tonight. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Are there more folks in the room signed up to speak, or did we figure out our? Okay.
See what I wrote. Hi, so I'm Carmen DeLeon, Mello DeLeon. I'm glad to be back because I tried coming, you guys canceled this thing and I couldn't find it. And I kept trying to find this committee come back, and I finally made it, and it's already May, you know? But anyways, what I want to say is what he's talking about is true, because you say planning commission. So what is the city planning? Because from what my understanding is, the mayor is planning on making this a bike-only city. And that is why she removed those bike lanes, driving lanes to bike lanes. 6,000 people are suing the city of Vancouver, businesses and et cetera, for the damages because the mayor went ahead and made it bikes all up and down 4th Plain, ruining the businesses, et cetera. And the people have already said they don't want bike city. They've said they voted out light rail since 1994, and that is a $2 billion deal. And that's why I'm asking about it, because like I said at one of the meetings, why would you make a $2 billion, one stop $1 billion for 1,000 people a day ridership? Makes no sense at all. So I said, why do you want one stop downtown, one stop on Evergreen, unless you want to make it to Hazeldale? Well, come to the other meeting, and they said, no, they actually want the light rail to go to Wazoo. So, and she even said, I watched Portland to see what they're doing that we do. So yeah, we're becoming Portland. The mayor has become Portland. She's watching them. She's imitating them. She's putting the light rail all the way up 99 up to Wazoo and wants to annex everything else. And then there was another guy who said, well, once the city of Vancouver annexes you, we're going to take away all the fireworks anyways, and we're going to mandate this and that. So the city of Vancouver wants to take over even more. And I looked up the annexation from 2007, and they've maxed out. According to what I read, they took Philida, they took Salmon Creek, they took et cetera. They're annexed out. So now what are they doing? Bending rules again to annex more, to put you more in the hole? And I don't understand how anybody would even listen to people who have put the city of Vancouver $44 million in the hole. And they want to make it $2 billion more for the max, for the light rail that nobody wants, that's been voted out since the 90s. See, somebody in the city of Vancouver isn't thinking up here. That doesn't make any sense. The Clark County people have said no light rail, and they're forcing it. She's even rigged the vote because they were going to vote. I was in the meeting, and I saw that she went, hey, what are you going to vote? What are you going to vote? What are you going to vote? When she saw they were going to lose, they froze the vote. They changed one of the people to put one of their voters so that now they'll all vote yes and get max, which 1,000 people a day, a movie theater holds 900 people. That's how small. $1 billion for that? How selfish of them. You're not even losing they have the 10-year low of bus ridership.
Thank you.
Who would invest in that?
Okay.
Okay. Kimberly, can you hear us?
I can now.
Oh, yes.
Amazing.
Great. We can hear you.
Okay, so I'm not on my minutes yet. I'm going to ask if those wonderful citizens are they still there? All 4 of them? Or
Yes,
did they leave?
they did. I'm going to try and turn up the volume so that people can hear you.
Okay. So they're still there?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it was very important, but
Sorry.
anyway, good evening.
Just give us one
Can I
more
go ahead
second.
and speak? Can I go ahead and speak now?
Just give us one more second.
Oh.
That's the microphone volume. And that just turned me up. There we go. That's what I don't know why. This is not feeding back.
What do you want to do? What do you want to do?
I don't know.
Can everybody be really, really quiet so they can hear you?
Yeah, so
I can hear you now. There was times where it blanked out. I couldn't hear you. Can
okay,
you hear me now?
Kimberly, we can hear you. We're gonna have you talk. We're not connected very well to the speaker system in council chambers, so everybody might not hear you perfectly. But we're gonna we'll make sure it's recorded and we'll put it in the minutes, so it will be part of the public record. Okay, so speak as loud as you can, Kimberly.
Oh, speak as loud as I can. Okay.
Okay.
So, good evening again. Yeah, Kimberly Goheen Elbin. I do want to thank those citizens. If the citizens of Clark County and Vancouver could hear what those 4 people said, boy, wouldn't we be in a different world today. So I haven't been involved with this planning commission much, and certainly not the complicated subject of housing. I will suggest there are millions of hard-earned tax dollars not well spent for the people, but more for the developers and of course the investors and all that. And living all of my life here and seeing the overpopulation pollution, developers find Clark County as a way to get wealthy. Investors were said to be a driving force in this overpopulation, and the developers and investors do not have the people's best interest. I'm trying to say that as I see all housing business in Vancouver that falls under a sanctuary status, as Vancouver has claimed, so on record, to be sanctuary, such as Portland claims to be, but at least Portland, after I brought it up in a meeting 2 years ago, that they were sanctuary, and I wanted to inform the people there, they now have it on their website that they are a sanctuary city, and that's why they have all the problems. There's lawlessness going on there, right? So where Vancouver is not and has not been transparent for the 5 years that I've been actively speaking against them, because they are United Nations entity, and you well know this. So to the people of Vancouver, they're not transparent in asking them to get involved in their local government. This is the year that all Vancouver taxpayers will finally audit this sanctuary form of government. And this commission must soon realize that Clark County citizens are fed up with our country setting, our farmland heritage being gobbled up by money lovers and those that actually have caused a lack of housing because they want more sanctuary-minded people to flock here in Clark County, and I'm sick of it. And they're in Vancouver, which wants to be the second largest city in the state of Washington, and she wants to build way up and up. So let me tell you this, coming from an aviation family, when you do that, that airport will probably cease if they get their way for any more population pollution, and I'm totally against that. So we the people, and we want our heritage, and it's been diluting the very heritage this government claims to protect. We will find out how many illegal immigrants live in the hard-earned tax-paying housing here in Clark County and Vancouver, and we will audit. We will find out where millions of hard-earned tax dollars really go.
Your time has expired. Do we have anyone else signed up to speak for community forum this evening?
We do not.
Okay. That being said, the community forum portion of this meeting is now closed, and that brings us into the next item on our agenda, the public hearing. The role of the Planning Commission is to review and analyze proposed ordinances, comprehensive plan amendments, zoning changes, and other land use related issues. We follow a public process, including holding hearings during which the public has an opportunity to provide additional perspectives and information. In legislative matters, the role of the commission is advisory. City Council will hold separate hearings, consider our recommendations, and make a final determination. The Planning Commission will conduct a hearing tonight and take public testimony. Community members may register online or submit a speaker request form in person. The chair will call upon you during the public testimony portion of the hearing. If you are in person, when you are called, please come to the microphone. If you have joined remotely, you'll be promoted to a panelist, and when you are called, unmute your phone or microphone. For all those testifying, please state your name for the record. If you are providing the formal recommendation of a neighborhood association or other group, tell us when the association voted on the matter, as well as how many people were for and against. We ask you to keep remarks brief and to the point. Direct them to the Planning Commission as a body, not the audience or staff. Please do not repeat testimony that has already been provided in print or verbally. As a reminder to my colleagues, please indicate to the chair when you want to be recognized. At the conclusion of public testimony, the commission will deliberate and make a recommendation to council. Would anyone on the Planning Commission like to disclose any conflicts of interest? Please please show respect for the people testifying tonight, whether you agree with their comments or not. Deputy Director Kennedy, would you like to provide some introductory remarks on the public hearing item?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sort of along the same lines as the introduction I gave to the workshop item, the hearing item before you tonight is really part of a package of things intended to marginally decrease the cost of development in a way that makes more projects feasible given our housing goals and the current market conditions. Yeah, with that, that context, I'll turn it over to staff, Chun Ko from the Economic Prosperity and Housing Department, and then Brian Snodgrass from Community Development.
Thank you. We have a relatively brief presentation. Let me just introduce the issue and turn it over to Chun to lead you through the details you have in addition to this presentation, of course, the staff report. There we go. So just briefly, we'll talk briefly on the process for reviewing, again, in this unusual environment before adoption of our updated comprehensive plan and associated zoning code, either at the end of this year or excuse me, early next, and provide the recommendation on this particular issue regarding the removal of parking minimums for affordable housing. Prior to the comprehensive plan update, the City Council, through resolution, directed that only a small number of types of issues should be brought forward for legislative changes such as this, including one of those was short-term provision of housing, particularly affordable housing. As mentioned, this is all in advance of the comprehensive plan and associated zoning code update. And those are listed here are those items which the council has directed are appropriate to hear in this interim period. The criteria before you is the same as it would be for any text change to either the comprehensive plan or zoning. One, these are somewhat broad criteria, that it be consistent with the applicable policies of the Vancouver strategic plan and the comprehensive plan. And also that it be necessary to further the public interest based on present needs and conditions. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chun.
Thank you. So eliminating parking minimums has a proven track record in other jurisdictions, both regionally and nationally, of reducing housing per unit production costs for projects that would or need less parking than the code would otherwise allow, promoting efficient land use outcomes, and improving walkability and pedestrian environments. All of these align well with the strategic plan focus areas of transportation and mobility, human and housing needs, and vibrant and distinct neighborhoods. So affordable housing has fallen well short of the identified need. Affordable housing production has fallen well short. Additionally, we are seeing significant slowdowns in housing production of all kinds, with the number of units under construction at a low that we haven't really seen since the 2008 housing crisis. So eliminating parking minimums can help close the feasibility gap by not forcing developments to build more parking than they need, and allowing greater flexibility for new developments to explore parking agreements with neighboring properties that may have existing excess of parking to meet the demands of the new development. So the proposal is to reduce the off-street parking requirement to 0 for housing projects that provide at least 50% of their units at 100% area median income and below for at least 10 years. This will require updates to the VMC sections 20670.040, the Heights District Plan, and 20.945.070 minimum off-street parking requirements citywide to accommodate. So removing parking minimums does not require developers to build less parking. Instead, it allows properties to right-size their parking instead of building to predetermined standards that are set by the city. As development will still need to provide sufficient parking to attract and retain residents, we don't expect significant impacts to the amount of overall parking being produced. However, projects that are able to reduce their parking due to lower need are expected to see significant benefits to project feasibility. We have heard from several affordable housing developers that they would benefit from lower parking requirements and or the increased flexibility that eliminating minimums would have in terms of what the project is able to, or in ways of providing parking for their residents, reducing restrictions from lenders and other investors in their project. And with that, we'll open it up to questions and testimony and deliberation.
Thank you. Commissioner Wheeler?
Overall, I think this is a step in the right direction, but I think that we could go further. You know, if we've established that the market is capable of producing enough housing for the developments that they're working on, that logic applies to other types of land use as well, non-affordable or like market rate or luxury housing and every other type of land use. When we're looking at making housing more affordable, that includes the cost of housing, sure, but it also includes the cost of transportation as well. And if building parking to an arbitrary standard set by the government is also inhibiting production of other land uses, then that might be getting in the way of us creating walkable neighborhoods or transit-oriented neighborhoods that people could get around with less or no trips using a car. And that helps make housing more affordable too. So I think this is absolutely a step in the right direction, but I think that we can go further than this.
Thank you. Commissioner Jay?
Thank you. I'm also aligned with Commissioner Wheeler's statements in deregulating the entirety of our parking for various income level for homes. So, but definitely agree this is a step in the right direction. So I will definitely be supporting this. So thank you very much for your good work.
Thank you. Commissioner Cabo?
No questions from me. Sounds like a great opportunity to increase our housing supply.
Thank you. Just a couple of items from me. I think you stated this previously in your presentation, but just to make it abundantly clear, does this change prohibit parking at all? Just trying to adjust.
No, it only removes the requirement to build a minimum amount of parking. It does not restrict how much parking is built on any site. Okay,
so is the city is not saying then that no parking or vehicle ownership
no.
is?
Yes, parking is still allowed where it would have been otherwise, and there's no implementation of a maximum parking number.
Okay, and then just thinking about some of the comments that we've received here. On slide 6, there's a chart regarding the housing production. Where can people find this data if they were looking to try and dive a little deeper into that?
I would, this data comes from our housing team. I don't know if this is in any public facing. I believe this is part of our Affordable Housing Fund dashboard is where this data comes from, but I would have to double check that it is publicly accessible.
If it is publicly accessible, I'd love to see that maybe in something that can be added to some document somewhere after the fact.
Certainly.
You can put it in the minutes.
Excellent.
Sure,
Thank you so much.
minutes.
And then on that same slide, actually, it mentions, or sorry, I guess I just had a question on this slide. What are some of the other initiatives or levers that the city is trying to pull here to help to support housing production? If you could just give us a brief recap for those who might not have tuned into other items on the agenda, what have you.
Certainly. So as came in front of you earlier tonight, we are looking at impact fee deferrals and having those be paid at not at permit pull, but later on when the project gets final occupancy. We're also looking at expansion to the MFTE, which is the multifamily tax exemption program for both affordable and market rate housing, as well as exploring opportunities to improve the efficiency and turnaround time for our permit review process for new buildings. And obviously looking for additional funding as well, and any other ideas that that we can identify.
Okay. And then lastly, I know that a lot of the time when we talk about trying to further develop existing spaces within the city, existing neighborhoods, and how that development occurs, whether it's through parking reductions or if it's affordable housing or things like that, people tend to always wonder, what does that look like for me, right? So when we're saying that we're trying to, as a city, support additional housing production, what does infill like that look like? Where do these houses go, right? Where do these multifamily housing units go? Like, what does that look like to the average person?
I mean, I think it depends. In more, I mean, from a purely market standpoint, you will typically see higher density and higher value parts of the city. So places like downtown where land values are high, you will see higher density developments. And in parts of the city where there isn't as much higher density development, you will see lower, or sorry, where land values are relatively lower, you will see lower density developments.
I mean, I think too, just like if you take the market out of it, you can look at a zoning map to see where different types of housing can go. So typically, you know, we have what we call low density or single family zones. Those allow for single family homes, duplexes, ADUs. When we finish the comprehensive plan update, every lot, single family lot will allow 4 to 6 units per state law. That's a big shift. Our what we call higher density or multifamily zones allow for some range, and it depends kind of on the zoning district what the maximum density or the height of a building can be. Generally tapers up towards 60, 65 feet. Also in our commercial zones, those are all mixed use. So you can think our big commercial corridors, Forest Plain, Mill Plain. So, and then, so you can see multifamily from a zoning perspective, it is allowed in a lot of the city today. And under state law, middle housing will have to be allowed on every single family lot going forward. So that if that helps kind of take the market factor out of it and more just look at it from a regulatory perspective.
Thank you. I think that's helpful. That's all that I had question-wise. And so I believe that takes us into public testimony.
We're going to try. We are going to try.
And also the presentation has been removed from the screen. I don't know if that was intentional.
I think it is, and we're going to try to get it back. So. That's the screen that will be showing. Let's try for Kimberly.
Hi, Kimberly again. Sorry, so I'll continue where I left off only because it has pertaining to housing.
Kimberly, hold on, we can't hear you.
So,
Kimberly, can you hear us?
yes, I can hear you.
Amazing. We can hear you now. The whole room can hear you now. So please go ahead.
No. All right. So I'll just finish off here. We will find out how many illegal immigrants live in hard-earned tax-paid housing, which is my concern. And we will audit and we will find out where millions of hard-earned tax dollars really go. So we will look into all of the tax breaks that you give to those that comply to your and to your agendas. And we want housing, yes, but only affordable and to slow way down. We're overpopulated and our resources are gone. That's coming next, but not at the expense of hard-earned tax dollars or our open spaces or our farmlands. There comes a time, and I might add also our wells, there comes a time when we must say Clark County has grown enough and be thankful and satisfied for what we have now as Clark County resources are depleting, such as clean air, clean land, and clean water. There's no clean air, no clean land, no clean water, and all essential to a healthy life. To those of us that are living here, we understand we are reasonable people. Clark County knows we've had enough. We don't need any more pollution. The state can find it somewhere else. And that brings me to, we also must stop all use of biosludge, or they call it biosolids, that comes from the recycled, which that's another story in itself, water that they're putting down, at least my river in La Center. But that's why we need to stop the growth. We're polluting the hell out of the earth. And so do not give away that biosolids to any farmer, such as we're doing up to Woodland, and I guess Portland's doing it. And here in Clark County, Vancouver's doing it too. We got to stop that, SH, okay? Literally. I'm going to mention that Clark County opted for the Growth Management Act. They did not have to. They did. Why? Because we're a sanctuary county. And that's what they did. They found a way through Biden's America Rescrew plan to soak out millions of hard-earned tax dollars just here in Clark County. And it's all right there in front of us, but it's so complicated that the citizens would have to take a class to understand this stuff. And we need to stop growing here in Clark County. I'm asking this council to go to bed tonight and see that we have polluted the earth. We have to protect the people that are here. I put that under public safety. That's our priority number one. We have got to stop this overpopulation pollution. We don't have clean water for our own kids or grandchildren right now. And we have to learn how to filter that water, make it right so we can drink, because you know what? We're on the way to going down. And hey, you know, I love God, so I fear not. But here we go. Thank you. God bless everybody that's there.
Are we able to put the timer back on the screen?
Are going to work on it
Okay.
while we're having people talk. So,
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes.
Please call the next person.
Next we have our Jason Cromer and Ansel Lopez.
Okay, test. Perfect. Hi, my name is Jason Cromer. I'm here on my own accord. And I just wanted to speak in favor of the parking minimum changes that were presented tonight or this evening. Yeah, parking minimums are they're an absolute blight on urban planning in cities across the nation. I'm sure you all are aware of the negative impacts of parking minimums, but when we require developers to build an arbitrary amount of parking, we take what land use could have been, more housing, green space, public space available for people or businesses, and then it becomes a huge amount of space that is just asphalt, often completely empty or used to store private property, such as vehicles. And what that does, it then pushes out developments even further and further. And so we take more agricultural land, develop it into more concrete, more parking lots, and then we need more roads to drive between these highly separated places, creating more traffic, which a lot of people seem to complain about here, but don't seem to relate back to parking minimums, pushing all of these developments further and further apart. So I'm really excited to see these parking minimums being removed to now allow the opposite, a positive feedback loop to occur, more infill development, more affordable housing, less reliance on cars, less reliance on expensive car-centric infrastructure that it keeps pushing taxpayers to the limit because they need to fund a lot of these roads and car-centric infrastructure, which I'm sure if you spend some time looking at property tax data, most of our property taxes don't even start to cover the cost of car-centric infrastructure. We need to raise the taxes on car use and property tax a lot more to cover that. But anyways, I just wanted to speak in favor of those changes. It's a start to a really positive change for the city. And we should honestly let the market decide how much parking needs to be built. But I do see the positive in future infill development that can occur from what we see as just parking lots today. Just anecdotally, where I live, just north of Uptown, there are several countless lots that just sit empty as parking lots and asphalt, and I'd love to see those developed in something useful, whether it's housing or mixed commercial residential that could contribute to the local economy, but also vibrancy, livability, and have it something that where people, no matter their age, children, teenagers, elderly folks, disabled, working class, wealthy people, anybody can simply walk, bike, or take transit to get around. It's a great move, and I think parking minimum removal is one of the fundamental aspects of a vibrant and modern city, which you see around the globe today. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Israel Lopez. I'm here on my own accord. On the agenda, we were discussing parking minimums specifically for low-income housing. I have a couple of thoughts to that. It's interesting because I just got off the phone with my brother who said, "Hey, Israel, can you spot me $550 so that I can buy this car?" I'm like, "Why are you buying a car?" I was like, "Well, I'm going to get kicked out of the place that I'm staying at, and I should just live in a car because it's cheaper than housing." And I'm like, what the hell? Like, I'm literally talking about that here, you know? And where he's talking about is in an area in Southern California, Santa Ana, California, where it's pretty much just like streets and street parking, and it's still not enough, but there's just single family dwellings, like as far as I can see. I was literally there with him a couple of weeks last week, hanging out with him. And so I can see how policies that we're discussing tonight will have multi-year, multi-generational impacts. And that's the sort of thing that like just can't be fixed overnight. Like you look at the charts that says like we just don't build enough housing for even the people that are here. Like stuff happens, people divorce, people lose their partner, people get cancer and they just can't work, so they go on disability. Like they need cheaper housing too. And I'd much prefer housing just already be available versus us just struggling to build it for their need. Anyway, so that's my point. The other point that I'm making that I heard from the commissioners say, like, hey, if this is good for low-income housing, I mean, it'd be good for all housing, and that would be my position as well. One thing as it relates to policy making, one of the things that was very, very interesting is that when I was in Santa Ana, California, which they're doing a lot of parking reform as well. I looked it up, and I happened to stay in an old bank building. It's converted. It got converted from a bank and offices into what they call it is 148 workforce housing, and it's supposed to be for housing options for residents earning 100% of the area's median income. But what's kind of messed up about that is that I booked that place through an Airbnb listing, so they're using affordable housing options and arbitraging it on the open market so that someone like me can stay there instead of staying at a hotel. So I did the thing which was reasonable, which is to stay somewhere cheaper, right? And that's what it was. So anyway, as you guys review the policies and review the impacts as to these sort of things, we've got to really think about how people are going to start behaving in their rational best interest, which is to make more money. So that's it. Those are my points. Thank you.
Thank you. Please be sure to state your name for the record before you begin your testimony.
Bruce Barnes for the record. I get a quick question for the four of you. How many of you rode transportation, public transportation here tonight or walked? Raise your hand. You did. Public transportation or rode your bike? You walked. Okay.
So just
Sorry,
quickly, the should not be directing comments directly to the.
Well, I'm just
commission,
asking
and we should not
because
be responding.
if this isn't a planning and development commission, I'm just trying to figure out, if they're, doing what they're asking everybody else to do. Secondly, age is a disability. When you start talking about making a walking city, I'm broken a million pieces. I've also been to 188 different U.S. embassies around the world. I did electrical work at all of them. And I've seen that they've built up, not out. But I've also seen the impacts of 15-minute cities, which Agenda 2030 tries to lead on to, that this will be this just big splendid thing and everybody will be driving electric cars. The problem is the grid here, California and Oregon, will not hold that. Plus, they want to take all the dams out. So what are we going to power all the electric cars with, and electricity in general? We're going to put in small nuclear power plants. What are we going to do as a planning development commission here? But I also see that our politicians are also paid by developers in campaign contributions, right? And developers want to make more profit. Okay, that's where you guys come in. You got to limit what developers are able to do, because they'll say that they're going to put low income housing in. And I've seen it time and time and time again. And they'll put 6 units of low income development in, and the rest of them are not. And they'll send it again an 8, 10, and 12-year deal. And when that 8, 10, and 12-year deal is, they redo and make a different LLC, and they re-sign with the city or the county or whoever this may be. And those same 6 units go up in price, which makes it unaffordable. I mean, the average rental property right now is $2,200. How is that affordable? That's a house payment. Unless you're, trying to buy a house now, and average housing right now is about $600,000, which is about a $3,300 a month house payment. Now, that's not insurance. That's not property tax. That's not water. That's not electricity. That's not sewer. So honestly, nothing here in this area, and especially with the new governor's policies on taxes, is going to be affordable really for anybody. It wouldn't matter if you had, like the Smith Tower down there, they rent out for $400 a month, but they also sublease to relatives and stuff and don't even live there. And so who's going to be the police officer that looks into all this affordable housing to make sure, like the other gentleman said, they're not turning these things into Airbnbs or subleasing them out to other people? So those are my comments for the night. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It says do not touch. So you don't touch it anymore. Okay. So I guess my name is Carmen DeLeon and Mello DeLeon. I'm talking again. And so they want to use California or Portland as an example. That's a bad example. The bottom fell out of the market. If you want to compare yourselves, to Portland, before COVID, downtown Portland area was worth $6 billion. Today it's worth $1 billion. So they've lost 80% of their value. I wouldn't take any lessons from California or Portland, no way. Because obviously you want to lose your value, go for it then. Another thing is parking, give me a break. I watched them develop, they went from the Coliseum to now they have the Coliseum and the Rose Garden. So they went from 18,000 to now 22,000 also. When there's a show, so many more people. Guess what they did? They didn't cry about the parking. They built levels. Same thing at Research Stadium. They added 5,000 seats. And I remember thinking, wow, they added, because one side was this way and then they added the other side. What happened the next year I went? They added 5 levels of parking every street. So if they say that they don't have enough room for parking, give me a break. Any building can put parking underneath, go down 5 flights, but you can get the parking without disrupting more land. Just put it underneath the units. So give me a break. They don't need to save costs. They're whatever. If you want to buy into it, okay, don't make them park. But it's not fair to the people who are living there, because it should be, if you want to move into an apartment, you get a place to put your car in. If you're one of the people who doesn't never want to drive, with good legs, who isn't afraid of every year we get freezing rain, it turns everything into a slick, which is why I've talked about anti-freeze streets, because in this part of the country, we can't have bikes all year around. It's just like he said, at our age, me get on a bike in the freezing rain, hello? You know, in the winter up in the Northwest, it doesn't work. Unless you make covered parking covered walkways everywhere where nobody's gonna get injured, but that's just one of the things. Anyways, what was I saying here? They're really just ruining Vancouver with too many people. And oh yeah, I was just gonna mention about, I picked this up because you wanna talk about bikes. It's in Spanish, I can't read it. And our president said, you must learn the language. It's a danger for somebody to not read English. I didn't know that you didn't have to read English. How can you let people in this country get a driver's license? It says wrong way and they don't know? It's not racism. It's basic safety. And when I saw this in Spanish, I'm like, why are you wasting money on this when our president says there's one language?
Thank you. Your time has
English.
expired.
This is a waste of money.
Do you have anyone else signed up for testimony for the public hearing? Okay. There being no further comments, this concludes the public testimony part of the hearing and brings us into discussion. Commissioner Cowell, any discussion, comments, or further feedback? Okay. Commissioner Wheeler, any further comments, thoughts?
Nothing really beyond what I already stated, just that I appreciate that the work the city is doing, and I'm excited to see us taking steps to make housing more affordable.
Commissioner Jay, any further thoughts?
My primary further thought is that I don't necessarily see this as being a anti-car initiative, but more so making sure that by getting rid of arbitrary limits that we are making a more efficient use of our land. So this isn't, I don't see this as a proposal that is specifically anti-automobile, but that's all I have to say. So I'm very excited about the proposal and look forward to supporting it.
For me, I think my fellow commissioners do make a good point that while having a parking minimum for a building might engender a certain amount of parking to be built, theoretically, people don't move into places that don't have the adequate services that they need unless they specifically are under some sort of duress or limitation to need to do so, right? The market should allow for developers of these units to really get a closer understanding of the parking they need to attract the residents to use those facilities and those housing units. And so to me, it looks like something that should allow us to really right size what's required as opposed to having a prescriptive minimum, which may or may not be arbitrary. So I don't think I have any further comments beyond that, but I do appreciate my fellow commissioners' comments and the presentation that we've had. So that brings us to the entertaining of a motion. The chair will entertain a motion on this hearing item.
Based on the findings in the staff report and May 27th public hearing, the Planning Commission recommends approval of the removal of parking minimums citywide for affordable and attainable housing projects.
A motion has been proffered. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion has been proffered and seconded. Please call the vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. The vote's being tallied. If I am correct, the motion passes. So the Planning Commission forwards a recommendation as so adopted in the motion. And that, I believe, moves us out of the public hearing and into our last agenda item, which are staff and commission communications. I did want to take this time to address some of the comments that we've received that were not specifically relevant to the hearing item and the prior workshop. I think there's a lot of community concern about what the comprehensive plan looks like for the future, how that impacts their neighborhoods, and what they can expect out of change. And so I was hoping that we could maybe have some sort of dialogue to really dive into that a bit, with the constraints of time that we have, so that we can at least put on the record what comp plan change might look like for these folks, for everyone who lives in the city, what that timeline for change might be, and kind of understand, right? Because to my understanding, it's more fair to say that these are changes in permitted use and not necessarily prescriptive. The city isn't looking to bulldoze neighborhoods and erect structures and things like that, right? But we're saying that these changes that are coming are just changes in what's permitted, which then would mean that really the people have to engage with that change, right? And development has to engage with that change. So I was hoping you could give us a bit of feedback about that to address some of the comments we've received.
So a couple things, just to set the baseline. So allowing 4 to 6 units per single family or residential lot is not optional. It is state law. If we don't do it, it will go into effect through a model code that will, that Commerce has drafted. So that's not an option in terms of, again, what we allow in different parts of the city. In practice, right, just because you allow something doesn't mean it will happen. In fact, in most cases, it won't happen. Nothing will change because it won't be feasible. So there won't be market capacity to support, say, buying a property, removing whatever is there, if something is, and then rebuilding something else, right? That there won't be sort of sufficient profit to offset the cost of that, right? Of buying and building. Also requires private property owners to engage. So, right, like just because something's allowed, right, we have private property. So it really is up to those folks to decide what they want to do on their land. It doesn't mean their neighbor might decide something different, right? That is always a possibility. But again, most people won't do anything. And so change will be incremental rather than wholesale, slow. We're not going to see the character of entire neighborhoods change overnight or even in the 20-year comprehensive plan time horizon. And then I guess lastly, I'd say that, the rate that we would assume, at least in single family neighborhoods, or what will be the new low scale neighborhood, that you'll see the addition of duplexes, triplexes, and built out places is very slow because, again, most people won't do anything differently than they're doing now. And so it'll be like, extremely incremental. I think the council has been pretty clear about their policy direction. We have a structural, nationwide, a structural problem in how we fund transportation infrastructure, and simply cannot afford to sort of build to ultimate or peak demand, right? We can't build roads that will operate 100% smoothly at the peak of the peak when the most demand is on the system. And so instead, what we have to do is give people choices. It may make sense for you to drive at one period, but when there's a lot of congestion, you may want to do something else. You may want to travel at different times. So we need to have options on the road for different things. So I hear a lot about traffic. A lot of the middle housing product is not going to generate a ton of traffic or new trips. Sort of our policy is, because we cannot build our way out of demand, we have to provide different options, right? We have to allow people to do different things: bike, walk, roll, take transit. That sort of allows the transportation system and the infrastructure we have to be more efficient. But I would say the biggest change in sort of what we as staff would hope to tell folks is that there's a set of new laws at the state that we have to implement. We are required by law, and if we don't do it, the state will do it for us. And so better to manage it in the context of our community. And then also that growth is coming and you can't stop it. We don't have the ability in this country to prevent people from moving between states. It's just not something we can do. So there's sort of two choices. One is to manage growth, and one is to not manage it and have all kinds of unintended consequences. So our goal in this plan process is to manage it. And then also that change really will be implementable or sorry, incremental. It will depend on both, sort of the market, the demand and the ability to sort of actually finance changes, and also just the sort of willingness of individuals acting in their own best interest to change what's on their property or sell their property, which will be very slow. And that's consistent with what we've seen in many other places. Does that help a bit?
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's actually really helpful. Kind of to your last point there, a lot of people seem to express or feel like this is something that the city is going to do to their neighborhoods, but truly permitting use in a neighborhood just means that people now have further options with what they choose to do with their property or the folks who might end up buying their property, but they have to engage with that change for it to actually happen. Nothing changes in your neighborhood overnight because your zoning changes.
Correct. Yeah. And I think the other thing, good point you're making, is that the city is not going to be the person outside of, small, our limited portfolio of direct projects we can invest in, right? We won't have anything to do outside of what's permitted, right? The regulation with any change on someone's property, right? That's where we don't build that stuff. So I think useful to think about that, again, I'm not trying to say that nothing will happen over time. And I think people should understand that, things will slowly evolve and change. But you have control over what happens in your property, and but you don't have necessary control over what your neighbor does. But just because we change the zoning doesn't mean your neighbor will do something different than they already have been.
Right.
In fact, the likelihood is low.
Thank you.
That helps.
I think that's helpful. That being, I think, my piece of commissioner communications. Were there any other communications from my fellow commissioners? Okay. Any staff communications this evening?
Just a couple. One, big thanks to Crystal Lyles, who subbed in because our regular staff and our backup staff are both out. So thank you for this. To our new support specialist that is going to be permanently running Planning Commission and Transportation Commission meetings starts Monday. Very excited. And Kale will be working with them to train them. And so that's great. And then just as of right now, and I don't anticipate this changing, we're not anticipating having a June meeting. So, we had 2 meetings this month, very likely we'll not have one in June. And then August is our typical summer break. So July we will meet, but that's the anticipated schedule right now. So thank you for making a second meeting in May work.
Excellent. Thank you so much. There being no further comments for the record, the May 27th, 2025 meeting of the City of Vancouver Planning Commission is hereby adjourned.